What up, Dragon Ball fans? You're now in tune to another session of Ponder and Win, and I want to jump straight into this as to not waste any time. This is for Xenoverse fans. So what I'm going to be talking about in this session is Xenoverse 2. Before I continue, I feel like I gotta make this disclaimer for every Ponder and Win that's dealing with something like this, you know, in reference to something that a lot of people are zealots for, just so you won't waste your time. So let me say this, man. If you are a zealot, meaning you are overly obsessed with the Dragon Ball property or Xenoverse in general, do not listen to what I'm about to say. You know what I'm saying? Do not waste your time listening to this session of Ponder and Win, because I promise you, in some shape or form, you're going to be offended or you're not going to like what I'm about to say. You know, save yourself the trouble of you quote stating that you wasted your time. That being said, if you are a fan of Dragon Ball, I welcome you to listen to this session. I want you to listen to this session so you can actually see and comprehend what I'm talking about in regards to Xenoverse 2. So that being said, let's jump into this session, man. First off, for Xenoverse 2 being the successor to Xenoverse, when Xenoverse came out and once the numbers came back of how many copies it sold or shipped or whatever the quota was, a lot of Dragon Ball zealots were bragging about the sales of Xenoverse. And the reason that Xenoverse sold as many copies as it did is for two reasons. The first reason is the creative character. There's a lot of people stated that, yeah, you know, I think that's one of the reasons. No, it's no thinking. You're right. That is one of the biggest reasons that it sold as many copies as it did. Without that creative character, well, I'll get to that in a minute. And the second reason is the altered storyline. Without those two elements, Xenoverse would not have moved as many copies as it did, because it would be the same as all the other previous Dragon Ball games, in which you're just running through the same repetitive sagas. So those are the two reasons that Xenoverse sold the way it did. On to Xenoverse 2 itself. Now, in the first teaser trailer, what caught my attention was, you know, do you wish the outcomes were different from Xenoverse? And when I saw it, I immediately thought they're talking about a hero-villain scenario. Gotta be. You know, where you can side with Goku and the Z Warriors, or, you know, the villains. You know, you take your pick or whatever. At least I'm hoping that's what it's gonna be like. It could be something else entirely. And I think I might have an idea of the direction that they're going. Put it like this. If Dimps goes back and you would have the same exact story has to be in place in order for them to do what they're talking about in that teaser trailer, to where you can actually alter an altered storyline. So, like for Demigod, before he turns Trunks, possesses Trunks or whatever, you know, whatever it is he does, puts Trunks under his spell, he states to you as your created character, he could give you anything you want if you joined him. So, you know, when I saw that text, I was like, yo, are they gonna let you actually make that decision? Like, you know, and they did. So for Xenoverse 2, I'm thinking as possibly what do you wish the outcome were different could possibly mean in a certain sense, but not necessarily at mid-battle thing. It's more of a like a end of saga result. For example, Frieza saga. Instead of Goku being the victor in that saga, you could side with Frieza and destroy Goku, and then that does something else. But yeah, I mean, that could get super complex, so I don't even want to go into any more detail than that for that. So, altered outcome, like I said, it has to be the same storyline as the first Xenoverse. My problem with this is they could have it to where they could have the exact same storyline. The only difference this time is after you beat Demigra, the game's not over. You have to fight Toa and Mira. If that's actually what they do, then what that effectively means, or what that means is, any person with common sense can come to the conclusion that they're basically selling you the same exact game, a director's cut. You know, it's what they didn't get to put in the first Xenoverse. And I know a lot of y'all would be disappointed. So that's my whole thing is, like, if you pre-ordered or if you're thinking about pre-ordering, you should wait, really. Don't get caught up in all the hype. On to my altered outcomes theory, basically. So I have it to where it's an A-B scenario. You know, that's one thing you'll notice as you continually listen to me, that I'm all about scenarios, especially for something or a game like this where you have a created character and it's basically endless possibilities, but Dimps and whoever else is, you know, Bandai Namco, they have to give you the options to, you know, to give you those choices. So like I said, the A scenario is the hero, and then the B scenario is the villains. So you can side with Goku and the Z-Warriors as usual, or side with your favorite villain or whatever. And your own character, you know, you can distinguish whether your character is a hero or a villain with branching storylines. Much like for any of, you know, old school gamers, I hate to say old school gamers, but, you know, for anyone that's played No Mercy on Nintendo 64, you know what I'm talking about. Or Project Justice on Dreamcast. And basically you could make one decision and then it'll branch off into one segmented line, and then it'll have maybe two branching paths from that segment. You know, whatever you choose, A or B there affects like the actual ending of the game. So let's just say for Xenoverse 2 it should be maybe like 4 possible endings. Like, you know, maybe like a neutral ending or something like that. That's positive. You know, that's a positive thing if they go that route. It's time to get into the negatives. And there are some negatives, super negatives. The first negative is that this game was developed in 1 year. Xenoverse came out in 2015. This is coming out this year. I think they said winter. So, winter 2016. The second negative is that instead of them talking about gameplay mechanics, which is the #1 issue with Xenoverse, they talked about the size of the hub world, 7 times bigger. The Bandai Namco representative, that's all he kept emphasizing in that sit down with IGN. So automatically that should raise some red flags for me. Like, why does he keep talking about, like, yeah, the world is 7 times bigger, the world is 7 times bigger? Or transitioning from the teaser trailer to what they called actual gameplay, which for me, I will call it simply a gameplay short. The gameplay short of Turles and future Gohan. Everything Turles was doing in that trailer, you can do in the first game. Matter of fact, I made a mock battle of that exact battle with Turles flipping all around. Same exact stuff, vanishing attacks. It's nothing new mechanically there. Now, I did see something the other day where they were talking about some new mechanics, reverse dash and all this other stuff. All that stuff is in Xenoverse. It's all vanishing attacks. I'm not even going to get into detail about that. If you can't distinguish that those are the same exact mechanics in Xenoverse, I don't know what to tell you. All that stuff they talk is in Xenoverse. Okay, that being said, I heard, you know what I'm saying, that they're talking about expanding the races, the created character races. And what this comes down to is something very lazy, basically. So, if you look at the Majin race, you only can create basically a fat Buu. So, in an expansion of that race, you're looking at now being able to create a Kid Buu or a Super Buu. That's all it is. Something, a slight variation on what already should have been in the first Xenoverse. When it comes to the Saiyan race, it's two things I can think of that they're gonna implement into the Saiyan race. The first one is obvious, which is Super Saiyan 3, since a lot of people were, you know, complaining that it wasn't in Xenoverse, or why wasn't it in Xenoverse. The second quote expansion is you actually being able to make a Saiyan with a Saiyan tail. So you automatically know, you know, where I'm going with this, which is you can transform into a Great Ape. As far as Earthlings go, I don't know. Like, I can't. How are they gonna expand that? Namekian, a Super Namek. I don't know how they would visually show that, but a Super Namek is the only expansion I can think of for Namekian. And then for Frieza's race, transformations. The same type of transformations that Frieza does. You know, a final form Frieza, or like a King Cole style Frieza, or a cooler style form, or something like that. It's basically everything that should have been in Xenoverse. That being said, I want to talk about the improvements needed, really needed, in Xenoverse 2 from a player perspective, because that's what's going to sell the game again, just like the first one. So the first thing is a more in-depth character creator. Now, for me, the best character creator I have ever seen is in Yuke's developed SmackDown versus Raw. The detail you can put into these characters, I mean, you can, if you're artistic enough, you can create basically yourself in this game. Any of those, you know, Yuke's developed SmackDown versus Raw games. And for Xenoverse, I was thinking it could use a slider as far as the facial aspects go, to get a more detailed face or more customized character for the player. But knowing, you know, Toriyama's art style is basically repetitive in his character design, so I can understand that, you know, I can accept that a facial slider is not going to be, you know, a part of the character creator, and I'm cool with that, you know what I'm saying? So it would be nice if it was in there, but I know more than likely they're not going to do a facial slider. So that aside, the more in-depth character creation process still applies though. So hairstyles, this is a must. Hairstyles were so limited in Xenoverse that I'm racking my brain, like, where's like Raditz hairstyle? You know, Brawly's second form hairstyle. Just to make more unique characters versus having, you know, a bunch of generic lookalikes. You know, you playing against somebody that looks like your character, or that has some of the same features as your character. Not saying that that wouldn't happen at all, but overall, a majority of the characters look exactly identical. And along with hairstyles, I want to talk about hair color and the sense of Gotenk's hairstyle, which is basically multicolored. I don't see why that wasn't in the game to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Just keeping it real, like, Did they not think people wanted multicolored hairstyles? I liken this to Freedom Wars. And the ironic thing is that Dimps developed Freedom Wars in conjunction with Japan Studios. And in Freedom Wars, when you going through hairstyles, once you select hairstyles, you have 2 coloring options for that hairstyle. The base and then the highlights. I don't see why they didn't bring that into Xenoverse. Next is eye styles. I never really played around with the other races. I mean, you know, I'm a Saiyan when it comes to Dragon Ball. But going to Boo's race, they have the eye color option that I'm about to bring up, which is black, white space, and then a colored pupil. The only races that I've seen, basically the Namekian and Frieza's race, can have the white space entirely colored. Earthling and Saiyan only have like a typical human eye layout. What I'm basically saying is an eye style, again, I'm gonna use Freedom Wars as an example, as the visual, to where you can turn the white space black and color the pupil and iris, basically. You know, a Tokyo Ghoul look type of character. Some of y'all probably saying right now, like, yo, that's Dragon Ball AF is fan fiction and all that. Who cares? I'm not saying use it as Dragon Ball, you know, fan fiction or whatever. I'm just saying that that will enable you as the player to create a more unique, created character. You should want that. So yeah, next is aura color. Now, I know a lot of y'all is like, yo, what are you talking about? Basically, when they power up, red, blue, yellow for Super Saiyan, purple, green in the case of Cell, when he powers up, his aura is green, and black. So I know they can allow players to pick a color of their choice just so you can have a more unique created character. As far as also, while I'm talking about auras, they need to make it to where the auras are reflective of the character's power level. And what I mean by that is, you haven't seen it in a while. Matter of fact, basically in Dragon Ball GT Final Bout, it's 2 characters up there that when they power up, the aura that surrounds them is gigantic, like the space it covers or the area it covers. And that's basically Super Vegito and Super Saiyan 4. Who knows what they gonna let you power up to on Xenoverse 2. More than likely it'll probably be the same as the first Xenoverse, but I'm just saying, like, you know, as you get stronger, your aura should get big. Actual characters in the Dragon Ball, you can't customize the color of their clothes or their outfits. You know, Broly, Vegito, and that's dumb. Like, you know what I'm saying? Every single piece of clothing needs to have a color palette. No exceptions. Most important, game mechanics. The game mechanics of Xenoverse were far from flawless. They were flawed. Mainly the flight mechanic, the diagonal angle. You can actually see it in the Turles and Future Gohan gameplay short that they showed. Turles is at an angle. That angle is unnatural. It's almost like the characters are on strings. Even when you get KO'd, like in Xenoverse or whatever, you see a character linger in the air or sometimes get yanked back up and then drop down. The flight mechanics, yo, Spike got it perfect for pretty much all the iterations of Dragon Ball games that they developed, from Tenkaichi to Rage and Blast. So Dimps is unable to do that apparently, but it's still in Xenoverse 2, so that's already a flaw for Xenoverse 2. Beam struggles. I don't see how this was not in the first Xenoverse. It's a big part of Dragon Ball. Beam struggles is one of the staples of Dragon Ball, yet it's not in Xenoverse. If it's not in Xenoverse 2, that's another negative for Xenoverse 2. The negatives just keep stacking up for it. Also, while talking about beam struggles, they need to let players choose the color of the beams, no matter what it is. Kamehamehas, Gatling guns, Final Flashes, Spirit Bombs, just to give, you know what I'm saying, like I said, a more unique created character experienced in conjunction with beam struggles, the meteor smash. And I know it's a strike technique in Xenoverse, meteor smash, I think. But I'm talking about the actual act. Like when you clash up, or you're punching rapidly against another opponent. Both of y'all punching at the same time. That's a meteor smash, and I'm basically taking that from Dragonball GT. Back and forth, attacking or whatever. In Dimp's version of the meteor smash, nobody is damaged. You just punch continuously until both of y'all backflip out of the animation. Somebody has to get damaged. While I'm talking about beams, I want to talk about beam destruction. Basically, for this example, I'll use searching for the Dragon Balls. You have a time limit when you are searching for the Dragon Balls for those parallel quests. So you want to be as quick about it as possible. And in doing so, just for example, Planet Namek, I'll use Planet Namek. So on Planet Namek, sometimes the Dragon Balls is in the Namekian huts. And I thought I was tripping when I first did it. I did a AoE attack and tried to destroy all the huts at one time, just to, quickly see where the Dragon Ball was. I'll just, I'll use my demon villain character for this demonstration. I'll be using Brawly's Gigantic Omega. So when I do this AoE attack, you'll notice that not a single Namekian hut is destroyed. Whereas if I use a Kamehameha or a focused key attack, the hut is decimated. I don't know how Dimp set up or how they calculated but an AoE attack should level everything that's destructive. Period. There is no debating, there is no, well, maybe this, maybe that. No. Especially in Tenkaichi 2. When AoE attack is used, it destroys everything that's destructible. And of course for Tenkaichi, they still had that Budokai type super where it could, depending on, I don't even know what the parameters were for it to occur, but depending on what type of super it was, the camera would pan out. You basically would see the earth and then a big blast come from it. And of course that's not on Xenoverse, but I'm just saying, like, 3 little huts or 3 Namekian huts and Broly's Gigantic Omega in the center of it, and you mean to tell me that it is unscathed, not a single hut is destroyed? Yo, it's ridiculous. If it's not fixed for Xenoverse 2, or the AoEs are not reflective of the actual destructive damage in Xenoverse 2, that is another negative for whatever they would say that Xenoverse 2 has over Xenoverse. Fighting style / fighting stance. If you take a look at Vegito, Gotenks, whoever, specifically Gotenks and Vegito, if you highlight them as a character like you're about to pick them and just let it sit idle for a few minutes, you'll see them start to dance around with their fighting stance. And it's the same way, like, certain characters fly a certain way. So this all coincides with each other. Fighting style / fighting stance. So they should allow you to pick that. And I would liken this to, basically, it's the equivalent of SmackDown versus Raw, where you get to pick like powerful style or whatever other styles is up there. Basically they should allow you to pick from the canon Dragon Ball characters. Like, let's say you wanted Vegeto's fighting stance or fighting style or whatever, you could select his fighting style and fighting stance, and your character would have that fighting style fighting stance. But you get what I'm saying. Alright, so while I'm talking about fighting styles and fighting stance, there's 2 things I want to mention for this real quick. The first thing is the techniques. The characters that Demigrai put or were able to control, or the characters he was able to control, or that if you play with that character, that version of the control character, you will see that they have a unique moveset to them. The biggest technique for me that I was like, yo, why is this not in the game? All of the techniques should have been in the game, but the one specific one for me is Darkness Mixer. If you made a villainous character or evil character, that power up ability would be perfect for your evil character or whatever, or your villain character. That's another reason that for Xenoverse 2, a hero villain scenario, that moveset really should have been in Xenoverse, but it definitely needs to make Xenoverse 2. If it doesn't, there's something seriously wrong, man. Especially if you have an evil character. I know some people might say like, yo, the Darkness Mixer is like a force field or something. You know, it doesn't matter. It's not like it's impenetrable. You know what I'm saying? There's ways to get through it. You get the point. I ain't gotta go into detail about it. Also, like I said while I'm talking about the fighting style / stance, flight, I guess they could, you know, link the two. But basically, you know, like if you slow, just glide kind of with Vegito, he got his arms crossed and he's chilling, flying around. And the same thing with Beerus. You know, if you're real low to the ground, he just got his hands behind his back, you know, flying around or whatever. So the fighting style / stance should coincide with the way they fly around, you know what I'm saying, at various speeds. The last thing as far as fighting style / stance goes, I would have to say is sword technique. Basically, you already know Trunks is the sword user for Xenoverse, but if we go back in time to Budokai Tenkaichi 2, Tapion and Yajirobe were sword users as well. So for me specifically, Yajirobe's moveset and his placement of the katana is what I would want aesthetically for my character. But my whole point being that there definitely should be some sword movesets in Xenoverse 2. I mean, you know, Demigrad's using a staff, and it's a bunch of sword accessories, staff accessories too, so it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for them to implement a couple weapon movesets, sword and staff. And that's it as far as fighting. In addition, I'll just mention this accessory. We need at least 2, or for Xenoverse 2, there needs to be at least 2 accessory slots. Because, for example, for Xenoverse 1, to make Turles, you only have 1 accessory slot. So all you can use is Goku's wig to get the actual look like Turles. You couldn't get the scouter. You would need a second accessory slot. So that's why I say 2 accessory slots. So 1 for a hit item, and then the second one either for neck or ears, like the Patara earrings, which I don't see why they wasn't in the first Xenoverse. It doesn't make any sense. And along with that, I also want to talk about the fact that they didn't allow Gotenk's outfit in the game. Why is that? You had to get DLC to get Gogeta's, quote, Gogeta's outfit to use as an outfit. That is the dumbest. It doesn't make any sense. Gogeta's not even canon, whereas Gotenk's is canon. His outfit should have been in the game. You shouldn't have had to pay for it whatsoever. I heard a rumor somewhere that they're only adding like maybe 4 or 5 characters, basically from Dragonball Super. Turles is 1. So, and Turles should have been in the first one. The biggest thing that Xenoverse 2 has got, keeping it real as always, is the hub. And wow, it's 7 times bigger. So what? The question is, can you interact with everything in this 7 times bigger hub? If not, it's pointless for it to even be that big. So with all that being said, man, as always, thanks for listening. Peace.